And we're live. Councilman Clark, you have the floor and you're on mute.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone, to our viewing audience that's looking at the Operations Management Budget and Government Accountability meeting live on Facebook, Hartford Public Access TV, through Comcast, and Frontier. This is the Court of Common Council's Operations Management Budget and Government Accountability meeting for today, July 20th, 2020. I am joined by my esteemed council colleagues, Council President Mally Rosado, Councilwoman Shirley Surgeon, as well as Councilman John Gale, who are all voting members of the OMBGA committee. And we have two items on our agenda today. And we also are joined by members of the Westbrook 3 Housing LLC. And we're going to go right into our agenda. The first item that is up for consideration is Mayor Bronin with accompanying resolution authorizing the City of Hartford to enter into a 15-year tax abatement agreement with Westbrook 3 Housing LLC for rental housing units to be developed at 124 Mark Twain Drive, officially known as 1550 Albany Avenue, which was submitted as item number 4 on the City Council's agenda on July 13th, 2020. And we have joining us the Executive Director of the Hartford Housing Authority, Attorney Annette Sanderson, and I believe I will turn the floor over to her for her presentation.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, members of the council. Thank you for taking the time to consider this very important resolution this evening. I am joined this evening with members of the Westbrook Village Development Team, the Penrose Cloud Group. You will see on your screen that we have Charlie Adams from the Penrose Group. We have Rio Sacchetti from the Penrose Group, and we are also joined by Anthony Healis, who is a senior project manager with the Cloud Company. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me tonight. And again, council, thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule for giving us time to come before you on this very important project. We have a PowerPoint presentation, and at some point, I'm going to turn it over to Charlie Adams to walk you through that PowerPoint presentation. But I just wanted to just give you an overview of why we are here. We are here because we are in the third phase of, we're looking to subsidize the third phase of Westbrook 3. I had the opportunity to be on site last week. I was actually on site on Wednesday, and I toured phases 1 through 2. And I'll tell you, it's amazing. It's amazing to look at the site. It's amazing to see where it has come. It's amazing to even think about what it will do for the community, what it will do for the city of Hartford in terms of improving the overall socioeconomic conditions of the community. I'm very proud of where we are at. We have made significant progress. For those of you that can remember what the project looked like, but my touchstone is always 8 years because I've been the executive director for 8 years. So I think about what it looked like 8 years ago, and we have come a very long way. We will end up with a community that is mixed income, mixed use, and we'll show more about that later. We'll show you the actual master plan. We will also end up with a community that will provide taxes to the city of Hartford. Because this was a state-supported project for several years, the city of Hartford didn't receive any taxes. So we're going from basically a tax-exempt property to one that will be bringing resources to the city of Hartford. And Charlie Adams is going to talk a little bit about the actual numbers in a bit. I will tell you that the abatement that we're looking for this evening is consistent with what we asked for and what was granted by the council for phases 1 and 2. And it is also consistent with the other development deals. We have a sister deal not too far from Westbrook Village. It is also consistent with the support of our sister deal not too far from Westbrook Village. I'm going to let Charlie introduce the new name of Westbrook Village. But for us Hartford guys, for us people that were born and raised in Hartford, I don't know if I could ever get Westbrook Village out of my vocabulary, Charlie. But I know you and Anthony and Rio continue to correct me on that. But it will add a mix of units at various levels of affordability. This particular phase has 15 market rate units, and those units are exempt from the tax abatement deal that we're talking about here. This is a deal that's been previously supported by the council. And again, I want to thank you for that. Your support means a lot to us. When the time is right, I would love to have the opportunity to bring you all on site and to show you what we've done for the city of Hartford. Just walking into units and just imagining how people will feel when they live there. I kept claiming the units as my own. I kept, as I was walking the site, I want to live here. I want to live here. Or I can see the example I used the other day was I could see a mother and a child living in this particular unit, overlooking the courtyard. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Charlie Adams, who will walk you through the PowerPoint presentation, and we'll show you some pictures of where we were and where we are now and where we intend to go. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you, Annette. Councilor Clark, would it be okay if I shared the screen and showed the PowerPoint?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. That's easier said than done. Let's see if I can actually pull this off here. We did it earlier, so let's hope this works. Oh, can everyone see that?
It's looking good so far, yes.
Okay, good, great. All right, so I'm going to just, I know our time is limited, so, and you all have a copy of this in your packets as well. So I'm going to try to run through this quickly. So the first thing, picking up on what Annette Sanderson said, we are calling it the Village at Park River now. So that is the new name, although Westbrook has not been forgotten, and we'll mention, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So Westbrook will remain in the development. So just quickly to give you a little bit of the history, on the right, you can see what the site looked like. It was built in the 1950s by the Housing Authority. It's a 40-acre site, and it consisted of 360 units in 80 residential buildings. And it came to a point where, it was no longer to support itself financially. It was functionally obsolete, and the Housing Authority actually had to stop leasing up the units around 2012. So when we before we embarked on the development plan, I believe there were 80 families left living on site. So this was in response, as you all are aware, of the Housing Authority putting out an RFP, and Penrose and McLeod Company put together a bid, and we were selected through a competitive process, and we're working with the Housing Authority. We were able, after that selection, to enter into a master development in 2016 and began immediately to start to identify resources to develop the site. A little bit as we started to put our plan together, as we were thinking about how to finance it, the more important piece was actually getting out to the community and actually engaging the community in what they wanted to see on the location. And so as you can see from this chart, and I think there are a number of meetings actually that aren't on here that we had as well, this just gives you a sampling representative of the types of outreach and community engagement that we did as we started to put the plan together. One of the things that was really fun at the very beginning was we brought our architects in, and we did a visual preferences study with the residents in the community, where basically our architect put up images of types of elements of housing that people might be interested in. And everybody voted on different pieces, and we got a sense of what people liked and what people didn't like, and then our architects were able to incorporate that into the final design. So here's a little bit about where we are with the approved master plan. This has gone through a number of iterations as it should. This is not a static document. After we started putting together the master plan and we started to outline phases 1 and 2, we realized things we might want to tweak or change, and so we've continued to do that as we've gone along the way. So at this point, this is the master plan where we are now. It represents about 422 units, I believe. And right now, it's divided up into these multiple phases, as you can see. Right here where my hand is phase 1, which is 75 units. This is phase 2, which is 60 units. And then phase 3, which we're talking about, is right in here. And right now, as Annette was saying, we actually are in construction on phases 1 and 2. We're moving along extremely quickly. There's 135 units that are under construction now, and we actually have some images here. And our goal actually is to start construction and close on phase 3 by the beginning of September. And so that's actually why we're with you here now, and why it's important that we try to complete this agreement with you and get this in place so that we can stay on that schedule to try to close and be in construction on phase 3 starting on September 1. Quick sort of overview of what that master plan looks like. As I mentioned, it's 420 units. We have a mix of 1s, 2s, and 3s. We're going to have a standalone community building. I'm just going to flip back real quick here to show you. So in the middle of phase 3, it won't be part of the residential, but within this area, as part of phase 3, we're going to do a 4,000 square foot community building right here, which we're really excited about. Plus a big public garden in the front of it. As you can see, there's from the map, there's lots of green spaces. We have 3 playgrounds that we spread throughout the 30-acre site. The 40-acre site, 30 of the acres will be residential, and 10 will be commercial. We can talk about that towards the end. We've got a walking and biking trail that runs throughout the development. I'm just going to flip back here and show you that this is a continuous path that's going to connect one edge to the other. And at the end of the site, we are going to have a mixed-use commercial, about 10 acres, with retail space right along Albany Ave. A little bit about our schedule. We actually, the other part that we sort of didn't talk about was we actually had demolished the whole site. And so we actually have just completed the last 2 buildings, which were demolished a couple weeks ago. And so that phase is now complete with respect to the buildings coming down. We were able to clear out the site where phase 1 started a while ago. So phase 1 is well under construction. And we are actually very excited that the first building of that should be done by the end of this month or the beginning of August. And that means that the first residents will get to move back into the site by the end of August, which is very exciting. And we're really thrilled about that event. And that's going to be a really historic milestone when people get to come back on the site. Here's a little bit about the rest of the schedule. Phase 2 is well under construction, and we're hoping to be complete the beginning of next winter in February, just after the first of the year. And then, as I said, we put construction start here of October. We actually would hope to do September as a start, and we think we actually could accomplish that and achieve that now. At the same time, we're putting together an application for the 4th phase, which will be about another 60 units, and that application will go in around in the fall of this year and sometime in November. Just a quick overview about how the units are laid out. As you can see, about 60 to 75 per phase. Out here in phase 5, we've got a few more. We may end up breaking that up, though, to break it up into smaller pieces. As I said, the master plan is sort of a work in progress. We continue to tweak it and evolve it as we go along. And here gives you kind of a quick breakdown of the units that we have by 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. A little bit about the income limits. What we like to say is that anyone can live here, right? And so we've identified units at, we have, as Annette said, there are some market rate units, and then we have a range of units that are restricted at affordability rates ranging from 25% to area median income to 60. So we've really designed it as a place where anybody can be, and that's really important for us in terms of being able to be a resource for the entire city of Hartford. Whoops. So this is, we've done some new renderings that have just recently been completed not that long ago, so we're pretty excited to show these. This is a street view down the main road, which is what we're calling Park River Drive, which is the main spine that runs from the north to the south of the site. A little bit about what the elevations look like, and I'll break down a little bit about phase 1. As you can see here, we have 6 buildings, 75 units, 60 affordable, 15 market. We will have a small management office in this phase right here. Ultimately, that management function will move to the community building when that's built, but for now, we're going to manage the facility out of this building, which is Front Plainfield. And that building's supposed to be done by the end of this month, beginning of next month. So these are hot off the press, as you can see. This is where we are in construction. I encourage all of you to take a drive by. You can actually really see it coming together. It's exciting to see with the finishes and the porches. The idea was really to create a variety of fronts of these buildings, so it looked like sort of individual townhouse units, and to really capitalize on some of the urban design principles of pushing the buildings close to the street, having pedestrian interaction, sidewalks, porches, really to get people to interact with one another and to interact with the street. And so you can see the variety of porches and stoops that we've created on the front of these buildings. One thing that you can't see from this picture, but is really important, is that everybody that lives here will have their own individual entrance, even if they're on the second floor. There's an entrance that goes in and stairs that go up to your second floor unit. So everybody has their own individual entrance, and that's true throughout the entire site. Another view of phase one construction, give you a little bit of different view here. One of the things that you'll notice is the windows may be a little different because they're all built to passive house standards, which is really exciting. Very high energy efficient building type, which we've incorporated so far into all three phases. Phase two, fairly similar, just a little different. Fewer units, 60 as opposed to 75. Slightly higher percentage of market. Phase two is under construction as well. We were able to close that fairly quickly. And we actually expect the first buildings in phase two to be done by the end of the year. So phase one and two are right on top of each other. Here's a nice little overview area that we've had. So what you see here in this area is phase one, and this area here is phase two. More sort of the phase two site. This is where phase three will pick up here that we're talking about tonight. So we were able to secure funding this year from CHAFA and DOH, so that's why we're moving forward here on this phase. This one's actually 65 units, and there's the breakdown of the affordability in the market. And like I said, we're trying to get started in September. And here's the sort of an aerial rendering of what we anticipate the final build out to look like. So phase one is up in here, which is under construction. This is phase two in here. Phase three works itself down around here. The community building, which you can't quite see, is in there, and then this will be the future phases. And then down at the end, which is not defined here in this area because we're still working on it, but this is where the residential piece would be, 10 acres in the front. So Charlie, a little bit about the tax abatement.
Charlie,
yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
you have
please.
to say the retail piece, the 10-acre retail piece.
The retail piece is right here, yes.
Yes,
the first 10 acres will be retail. Yeah, 80 to 100,000 square feet of retail.
Okay.
We just don't have it drawn yet because we're still working with users of it. So that'll really depend on the users to how that'll be laid out, but that's where that'll be. Oh, and our goal would be to try to see if we can put a senior building right up against it here towards the end of the phases, so that the seniors could have a nice connection to the goods and services at the retail piece. So a little bit about the tax abatement. So Annette sort of touched on this. Obviously, the big piece is that this property has paid no taxes and now will pay taxes. And we are asking for a tax abatement on the affordable units, which is, as Annette said, consistent with previous phases, consistent with other developments that the Housing Authority is working on, and consistent with general City of Hartford policy. The market rate units will not have an abatement, and they'll pay full taxes. And just to keep in mind, part of the success of this, why we were able to get financing, is because of the generosity of the City of Hartford to help to abate some taxes. And so that was actually a critical part of the award in which we were eligible to receive some of the tax credits, which we otherwise may not have been able to. So thank you. So the tax abatement summary, as Annette said, is really right now, it has been since 1950. So just quickly over the first three phases, if you approve the plan that you have in front of you, and then you add that to the previous plans, these three phases will generate about $228,000 per year. Over that first 15-year period, it's over $3.5 million of resources to the City of Hartford that are not available now. And recall, that's just the first three phases. So we are actually expecting another three phases on top of that. So you can see how this property will generate a lot of tax revenue for the city. Oh, as well as the retail will have its own taxes. Just a quick little timeline about the abatements. It's all in your package. I'm not sure I need to go through those dates, but just gives you some background about when we applied and when we were approved for each of the phases. And then I just want to touch quickly, as I mentioned earlier, our first residents are coming in. And so it's really exciting. So we actually did a lottery to be fair to everybody. And we advertised for the lottery very widely and broadly. And we held the lottery open for 30 days. And in those 30 days, 872 people applied. And so, as you can tell, the desire to be in this development is tremendous, and the need is tremendous as well. And what we're really excited about is that 21 of those applications actually came from former residents who have a right to return, and those 21 residents will get a preference and be at the top of the list. So we're very excited about that. And then, the good news for people that that are not at the top of this list is that our plan is generally to roll that over and have that available for phase 2. And so obviously the first 75 units are the ones we're leasing now, but it's going to be 400 plus units that we're going to lease. So so hopefully people will have plenty of opportunity to have a chance to live here. Just for your own records, if you're looking for more information, or if any of your constituents are asking about stuff, their first line of defense would be to send them to this website. And then obviously, of course, to reach out directly to any of us for any additional questions they might have if they can't be answered on the site. So that's what I have. Sorry, I feel like that was a little rushed, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And I know you have the packet in front of you, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And Rio and Anthony are here to answer any questions as well that I may not be able to, so, as well as Annette.
Thank you, Charlie, and Annette for the presentation of progress from the starting 8 years ago up until now. And I can say that, it is quite the sight to see, being familiar with how it used to look from the demolition till now. And I do commend Annette's team as well as Charlie and the rest of the team, Penrose, Cloud, everybody involved regarding making this possible right now. So if there are no other presentations regarding this, I will open up. You're good? Okay. I will open up the floor to my colleagues to see if they have any questions for Annette or the rest of the team. And I believe Councilman LeBron has joined us as well, so would like to recognize him as well.
Councilman Clark, this is Tone Nelson. I'd like to add one or two bits of information to this presentation that's going to, as part of this third phase of development. Charlie so beautifully mentioned all of the progress. He addressed a lot of the issues. This particular development checks off so many boxes, because not only is it designed for affordable, they also have a certain number of home units there that are marked for reserved for the homeless. And Charlie, please jump in anytime you like. That are reserved for homeless. There's going to provide support services for those units, in addition to the market rate units. And secondly, in addition to the property generating taxes that the family formerly had not, it will also, as you all know, they are complying with the HAP, the affirmative hiring practices of the city, and hiring 15% of all the entire construction costs is going towards to City of Hartford certified businesses, minority and women-owned enterprises. They're also meeting the resident requirement, which is that 30% of all the construction has to be done by Hartford residents, and the 15% of all trade work be done by minority and women-owned tradesmen. So I'd just like to point that out, just to know that, because oftentimes people ask questions about the other phases and are they in compliance with certain items of the agreement, and I just wanted to point that out, that yes, they are, and also the fact that this housing is not only designed for affordable and market rate, it also has that component of the homeless, which is key at this point in time, as you can all imagine. Thank you.
Thank you, Tone, for adding more information to that, to the presentation, to help to bring things into a greater perspective, and also too with bringing into greater perspective to any of the questions regarding compliance issues and things of that nature. Also would like to let everyone know that we have been joined by Councilwoman Wildelise Bermudez and Councilman James Sanchez as well. And Charlie, did you have anything else to add?
No, thank you, Tom, for pointing those out. Yeah, I think, we on the participation, we have a great contractor and they're doing a great job, and every job meeting that, those numbers are reviewed and digested, and we continue to look for ways to improve on the various participation components that we have on the job. So everyone takes those very seriously, and we focus in on those every job meeting and make sure that that we're doing what we can and should do to achieve those objectives.
Thank you. Any questions by my colleagues to the presenters?
Yes, I have a question.
I've got a question also.
Okay, so I heard Councilman Sanchez first. So Councilman Sanchez, Councilwoman Surgeon, and I see other hands. So Councilman Sanchez first, and then Councilwoman Surgeon.
Yes, my question is that in the area of the development, we have flooding issues and backup issues, and I'm wondering if that's been addressed with the proper infrastructure under the ground for stormwater.
I would ask, yes, I would ask Rio Sacchetti, who is part of the development team, to take the lead on that response. Rio?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Councilor. Yes, we are currently permit phases 1 and 2 through MDC. Phase 3, our application is with MDC right now for their final approval before we go forward with a building permit. We've also had discussions. Our engineering company, the Freeman Companies, which is based in Hartford, has had conversations with the neighborhood to the north of the train tracks about alleviating some of their flooding issues by potentially connecting to the internal stormwater system, which would lie around, I think, phase 5 or 6. So we're not there yet. But in the future, pending their approval to get under the railroad, we'd be allowing a connection to alleviate drainage, which is not on our property, but to the neighborhood to the north.
Oh, then, so have you guys engaged with the state officials or DOT possibly? Because I know that the train track, the rail system is owned by the state and leased out to a company. And then the issue here, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, that when we have a storm event like what we had last August, a lot of that flow affects the houses that's along Granby Street when it should be flowing towards the Park River. And I'm hoping that some kind of support from the state to build a conduit to lead that stormwater towards the Park River to alleviate any future issues that may most likely occur soon again if we have another rain event like we did last time. So I guess the question is the state also supporting and helping to fund the infrastructure so that we can alleviate not only what may occur there in the project, in the development, but also to alleviate what the development may inadvertently be affecting the other homes on Granby Street. So is the state playing the role here?
We haven't been the permitting proponent with the state. We've just received secondhand information through an engineering company. Anthony Healis, who's part of this development team, is on the call right now, may be able to provide a little more information. I believe it may be that the city is working to get that approval from the state first, and then once that approval comes in, our engineering company will connect that determines locations on our site where the connection could occur. So unfortunately, I don't have much more information about where it is with the state approval to fully answer your question.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor, if I could just add to that, I think, again, I'm going to get over my skis on that, but I mean, as a first and foremost, any water issues that are on our site, we take care of, and that's all been approved and all that stuff. I think the issue here is that our site is not, from what I understand, is not causing the issues, but our site could be a solution to the problem where other issues are being created. And so I think that's what our team is working with, in particular when Rio and Anthony are working with folks. We're trying to see how our site could be of assistance to that Granby neighborhood. I just want to make it, I want to be clear. I don't want people, to take away from this, perhaps maybe listening, that we're causing any flooding issues. And that's not the case. It's not our site. But we certainly feel like we can be in a place where we might be able to be helpful to the folks on Granby, and that's what we would certainly be interested in doing, and can try to do that.
My apologies. That's not my intent. I wasn't trying to say that that's going to cost you. But just, that there's an opportunity here to help correct an issue that exists now.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Oh, no, and I wasn't saying that you were saying that. I just want to make sure for, people that were not as tied to it, that make sure that the people understood that was those were the set of facts. So,
okay.
Thank you, Councilwoman Surgeon.
Right. Thank you, Annette, and thank the team for doing this, and welcome to the neighborhood. I live not too far from there, so I'm looking forward to having cool new neighbors in the community. Can I only have that one question? And I've also have a, you said you're going to have a senior area somewhere. I'm looking at your master plan, and you're going to be putting it close to the commercial area.
That's the goal. That's phase 6. So that's a number of years away. And so that's our grand vision.
Okay.
One of the realities is that the resources the state makes available are much more geared towards family rather than senior. So that could be a challenge. But that's what we aspire to. We'd be able to figure out if we could try to put, a larger, maybe a multi-story building on that corner there, which we think will be a great resource, because we know there are a lot of elderly that need housing, and we think putting them in that location, that close to a retail section, would just be a great amenity, and for a senior population, so they don't have to drive to some of the goods and services that they might want to access. So that is our long-term goal and plan. So
I still have time to apply then.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, we're on phase 4, and that's probably going to be, it says phase 6. So my guess is we're going to be more like phases 7, because we're going to have a few more phases between now and then. So
all right. So
you got time.
I'm glad. I've got time.
I'll give you my number. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So my other question is, if the unit is at market rate, how is that configured in the area? Do you have a building just for market rate units? How does that? I'm looking at your master plan.
I'm sorry, you're asking where are the market rate units located? Is that the question?
Yes.
So we spread them throughout. So one thing to keep in mind is that, a 1-bedroom looks exactly the same, whether it's to someone at 25% of their median income, 60%, or market rate. Same thing with a 2, and same thing with a 3. And we dissipate those market units all throughout. So no one will know where anyone lives, and it'll all blend in together.
Okay,
everything gets mixed in. Yep.
Okay, great. That was my concern. That's great. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Seeing the hands in order, Councilman Gale. Then after Councilman Gale, Councilman LeBron, and also to Charlie. If you're finished with the presentation, you can unshare your screen.
Oh, sure. That may be easier said than done. Let's try that.
That's all right. Councilman Gale, you have the floor.
Yes.
Stop sharing. I see stop sharing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just picking up on that last comment, the last question from Councilwoman Surgeon. You mentioned that you had a lottery for these units, and I'm wondering what type of interest you're seeing in the market rate units, because I think each one of these phases has a few market rate units at this point, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. So the market rate units were not part of the lottery. We weren't lottering those off. So those are going to be on a first come, first served basis. I do know that there were some applications that came in during the lottery just because, and they got pulled aside, and they're in ranked order. But at this point, I don't know what that count is. And even if we did present a number, it probably wouldn't necessarily be accurate, because we haven't really marketed those units per se. It was really about the lottery for the affordable ones, and the fact that we got some folks that were interested in the market were just sort of by happenstance. But as we go on and we start to collect that information, we can report that back to the council and give you a sense of what the demand is for those market rate units.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I have one comment and then I have one question for Tone, if I may. My comment, I want to applaud and thank Annette Sanderson for her leadership at the Hartford Housing Authority over the past 8 years. Keeping with the fine tradition of John Wardlaw, Hartford Housing Authority, it strikes me, has been at the forefront of where housing authorities can and should be in the year 2020. And I'm very excited about this particular project, as I was about Bowles Park, to see, that we're changing it up, we're mixing it up, we're integrating economically in the neighborhoods and combining that potentially here with some retail and some senior housing. So all of it, kudos to all of you. A question for Tone. On the city side of things, I thank you for mentioning the community benefits agreement, because I think it's something all council people are concerned with. We want to know what, how that's playing in. And I take it from what you've said, this is very consistent with what's been required of other projects in this particular project in its earlier phases. Could you also, Tone, speak to what happens if there's a default? What's what happens to this tax abatement if the applicants here default?
Okay, and default in which way, Councilman? The fact that they don't pay taxes, or that they
don't meet their goals. Do we have any particular provisions in here for if they fail to meet their goals? What happens to the tax abatement?
So the hiring goals, if they fail to meet the hiring goals, Councilman?
Yes.
Okay. All right. At this point in time, the hiring goals are just those. They are goals. It's not a requirement per se that will create a default in the agreement. So it is monitored by the Compliance Management Department, Procurement Office. And they work together along with the developer to help achieve those numbers during the construction phase.
I maybe I'm wrong. I thought there was some provision in the actual resolution. I was just looking for it.
So, Councilman Gale.
Yeah.
If you look at item number 10 on page 3, it clearly says, in the case of default, the city of Hartford shall retain the right to cancel the agreement, and its remedy may include the payment of abated taxes.
There you go. I thought there must be something like that. So,
Yeah.
So, Councilman, does that answer your question?
Thank
That's
you.
a big picture, Councilman. That does not only that applies to the overall performance and management of the project. So, i.e., if they don't maintain the certain affordable units, if they don't pay taxes, then that would create a default, which would require them to repay any abated taxes. In addition to the fact that if they were to refinance the project for personal gain. So, in terms of whether or not they initially default just because they don't meet the hiring goals is not necessarily enough. And I guess it depends on the efforts made. All right, the efforts made, and that's what the procurement department checks, is to make sure that they're making a conscientious effort and a good faith effort to meet those goals. And I'm not sure what will happen if they don't, because at this point in time, that's not.
And for how long is this tax abatement agreement?
It's 15 years from the date of the first certificate of occupancy or temporary certificate of occupancy.
Have we had any experiences where we've had a tax abatement come to the end of its time period and the project just immediately ramped up to paying full taxes?
We are experiencing with 3 projects that way this fiscal year. So under my watch, we've not had that happen. We've had 1 or 2 projects where the terminated, or where the contracted property decided to end the abatement, terminate the abatement voluntarily. So generally what we encourage people to do in this situation is to work with the tax office, tax collector, to pay 1 year full taxes. They can do that by making some kind of a payment arrangement. And as long as they're in good standings with the city and they've met their tax obligation, be it through full payment or through some type of written agreement with the tax office and corporation counsel, then they're eligible to apply for new abatement that would start, and generally the newer abatements are for 10 years and 10 years only. This particular abatement is a 15-year abatement because it's to run concurrent with the compliance period of the tax credits. Now, what that means is, and Charlie, please jump in anytime you like, the
Sure.
tax credit investor is looking for a certain dollar amount of clearance based on above and beyond the mortgage requirement. So they call it the debt service coverage ratio. And in order to remain in compliance, they have to meet that debt coverage ratio.
That's right. Yeah, and following up on the 15 years, Tone's absolutely right. These are 15-year obligations with the investor. Obviously, Councilor Gale, the restrictions that we've made on the units is for a much longer period of time. I believe it's 40 years or 50 years with the state, so that those income categories that you saw will go well beyond on the 15 years. So we're not going anywhere anytime soon. And either of those units.
Would the expectation be that at the end of the 15 years you would come in at that point and reapply for for an additional tax abatement going forward for another certain number of years?
Yeah, it would most likely, yeah, because the units will remain restricted, right? So we can only get so much income out of them. So the ability to go to full taxes would be strenuous for the entire property. You know, if you look at the difference, you know, the market rate taxes are pretty high, and so most likely that would where we come in. But that would be done in concert with an entire redevelopment of the property. So usually when you get to year 15 with these types of projects, you come in and it's called resyndication. We go get another batch of credits from the state, and we do a comprehensive renovation of the project. So in some ways, you'd be looking at the project 15 years from now, very similar to what you're looking at now. So we'd supply Tone with, you know, here are the rents and expenses, and here's the amount of capital improvements we're going to put into the property, and here's how much debt we can get out. So it would be a very similar exercise to what Tone's doing with us now, you know, 15 years from now, most likely.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilor, Tone, and Charlie. Any more? Oh, sorry, Councilman LeBron.
Yes, through you, Majority Leader, Mr. Chair. As a former resident of Westbrook Village, 50 Mark Twain Drive,
all right.
to be exact, yeah. So I'm just curious as to, yeah, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's where my right. two of my 3 children were born. So in regards to the lottery system and preferential for residents, former residents, what is categorized as former residents? And I had to hop off real quick, so I think maybe Councilwoman Surgeon maybe I have alluded to that, but just if you can do me the favor and you know, just tell me what qualifies as someone as former residents.
Sure. So Charlie, let me jump into that.
Yeah.
Let me jump into that.
Yep.
So hello, Councilman LeBron. How are you? Former resident. So when we started the redevelopment process in 2012, because it did involve state funds and other public funds, we made a commitment, and that commitment was actually in the RFP. When we solicit a developer partner, we made a commitment to offer a right to return to all those residents that were there as of that date in 2012. Now, the residents needed to remain in good standing in order to qualify for their right to return. So anyone who was in residence as of a certain date, and I don't have that date off the top of my mind, in 2012. When we started the redevelopment effort, when we moved people out a couple of months ago, seems like a year and a half ago, I guess I should say at this point, there were approximately 80 families on the property. Those 80 families were given Section 8 vouchers to help them, and other relocation assistance to help them move out. So again, to answer your question, anyone who was in residence as of a certain date in 2012.
Thank you.
I see a hand. I see a hand.
So I guess I don't qualify.
No, sir.
No, no, no.
Not at all. Councilman Sanchez.
So when you say good standing, does this mean, let's say they have to have good credit or at least taking a credit course? They have to be, you know, at a certain level of what they call the credit score, like a 7.0. Do they have to have a clean record? What does this mean, a good standing?
Very good question. A resident in good standing means that anyone that was in good standing with regard to their lease obligations with the Hartford Housing Authority, as of their lease obligations, including their rental obligations. So we didn't, when I say a certain, I'm not referring to a certain credit rating or anything of that nature. I just mean that they were a resident in good standing with the Hartford Housing Authority. I will be honest with you, very few people fell out of that category. Most of them were in good standing. There were some people that, for whatever reason, had stopped paying their rent, and those were residents that were not in good standing. We did work with residents to let them know that this is very important, that we want everyone to be in good standing. We want everyone to be eligible to participate in a new program going forward. So we had various outreach meetings with this development and with the sister development, Willow Creek. You know, I was out on numerous occasions saying, please, if you have a concern and you're not in good standing, meaning if you owe us, if you don't owe the Hartford Housing Authority money, you need to work with us. We did enter into various payment arrangements to help people get into good standing.
Okay, thank you for that. You answered my second question.
Thank you.
Oh, no, so Councilor Sanchez, if I could add to that, I think, you know, further to Annette's point, she's absolutely a little bit more on that. We had a relocation firm that reached out to everybody in advance
Yes.
who had a right to return to make sure that they were aware of it. And those that actually expressed a preference in coming back, none of them were not in good standing. So there was nobody that was materially affected that, you know, was not in good standing and wanted to come back. That was not the case. So that was all good. Just to add to that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions from my colleagues? Just want to keep everybody abreast on the time. All right.
This is Hartford City Councilman Woodley Sarinas. I just wanted to say thank you so much for the presentation. You're always very thorough and do good work in the community. So thank you for all your
Thank you. Councilor Clark, there was one thing I said I was going to mention. I forgot. I don't want to be remiss on that. The Westbrook name, right? So those of you that don't know, Stillman West, the name Westbrook Village comes from the first commissioner of the Hartford Housing Authority that Annette identified for us. And we have, even though we're calling it Village at Park River, we've dedicating the middle road through the site is going to be named Stillman Westbrook Court Road to preserve that name with this location and that site. So we've actually done a lot of research on Stillman Westbrook. He was a World War I hero. Rio was able to find some good information about him, and we actually have some books that he wrote that will be we'll have on display in the community office, which is it'll be kind of a cool piece of history to add to the site. And so the books are sitting in behind my shoulder here, so they'll be delivered to the site. So,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilwoman Sturgeon.
Thank you. Can I make a motion to favorably recommend the proposal back to council?
Absolutely. So the motion's been made for favorable recommendation. Councilman Gale?
I will second that, and by way of seconding that, I want to go back to something Charlie said, which was the offer of a tour
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, my second is
Absolutely.
upon council getting a tour at some point in the near future.
Charlie, can we make it happen?
I can
Absolutely.
totally make that happen. You
Thank
give
you.
us the time and the place, and we'll be there.
Well,
We're
Charlie,
social distance. We'll social distance.
Charlie, let's make sure we do it within the next couple of weeks because we'll have people moving in just over a month, right? So let's make
That's
sure
right.
we do it
Oh,
in
yeah.
the next couple of weeks. We want to show it off.
And you want to do it
That's
before
right.
our council meeting in the second Monday in August.
Is it?
Sounds good. We'll get, who should I coordinate that with? Council President?
I'll coordinate it.
Okay, all right. We'll get you guys there.
Thank you. So a motion has been made by favorable recommendation has been made with a motion by Councilwoman Surgeon. It has been properly moved and seconded by Councilman Gale. And if there are any questions, I have one actually comment. Council President, I see you. Actually, I'll go to you first, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Clark. I'd like to recuse myself from this resolution.
Duly noted. Thank you very
I
much.
work for the Hartford Housing Authority, so.
Thank you very much. This is a very good project. I'd like myself, such as with Councilwoman Surgeon, I live in the neighborhood as well. And I go
great.
past this every day. My sons go to school across the street. And so this will
fantastic.
they even recognize the fact of what the building used to look like when they were in school prior to COVID and what it looks like now. And they have even supported it by asking a couple of family members where they're going to move in.
That's great. Oh, that's great. Well, before we were really excited. We've been working with the school from day one, and we were starting to sketch out a field trip for the students over there to come and tour the site, an active construction site. Unfortunately, not to be, but it's a long project, and when school's back in session, we'll find another time to do a field trip for the students over there at the school.
Absolutely, sounds good. All right, motion has been made properly. Second, all in favor, signal by the saying of aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any recusers? Council President has recused herself.
Yes.
Any abstentions? Saying none, the ayes have it. This item has been passed with a favorable recommendation to the next council meeting, which will be August 10th, I believe.
That is correct.
August 10th. Thank you, Annette. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Mr. Healis and Tone and Brian Matthews, everyone from the Penrose and Cloud Company, Westbrook 3 LLC, for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
very much.
On behalf of the team, I sincerely thank you all for your support, and we look forward to moving on. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Great. Thank you. Good night.
All right, next on our agenda is Mayor Brown with the company resolution authorizing the city of Hartford to enter into a 10-year tax abatement agreement with TMG Cara Holdings Rental Housing known as Clay Arsenal Renaissance Apartments, which was item number 5 on our July 13th, 2020 agenda. And I believe we have Tone Nelson here on behalf of the city of Hartford to provide us with a presentation.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And also joining is Greg Jones, who is a representative of the investment group. We would like for you to consider, with a favorable recommendation, the abatement, the resolution to approve the abatement for the Cara Apartments located in the Clay Arsenal neighborhood. I also have a slide presentation that I'd like to share if I can figure out how to do this.
You may do so.
Okay. And I was told I go to share.
Yes.
And content.
Yes.
Okay. All right, there we go. All right, well, I can see the slides, however, see if I can somehow get them on. get Charlie there.
There you go.
And all right, how do I progress through this? Sorry, this is the first time I've done this, so it's new to me. And I'm sure
you just click through. You just click through like a slide presentation, or you can have Director Matthews there help you out.
Okay. All right. So this is an abatement for the 150 units located in various locations. There's various locations, a total of 32 parcels. We give you a slight overview of the property, slight history. It's 150 units, 32 parcels. Somehow it was the 32 parcels were combined under one ownership. The building was rehabbed in the early 80s, all 50 units. And at that point in time, it remained one single project. It had its challenges. Sometime in the early 2000s, it was foreclosed off by HUD, and eventually it was sold to the previous owner. As you guys may remember, this building had some issues, and it garnered a lot of attention from the general public. As a result of that, the former owner was encouraged to sell. Greg and his group acquired the property for sale, regular commercial deal, and here we are. And so far to date, you can see there's a refurbishment and restoration schedule plan that have been done. According to our research and discussion with Greg, most of the buildings have been either improved or secure or preserved. And when I say preserved, meaning they've undergone whatever the necessary construction was or work was to protect them from the exterior elements. As most of you know, when water, wind, and sun get into something, it's a short-lived from that point on. So 75% of the buildings has new roofs. In addition to the other information you see there, according to our discussion this morning, there was 123 of the 150 units have been restored and refurbished. I do know that they've obtained CA certificate of apartment occupancies and have applied for building permits sent under their ownership. And I will let Greg elaborate on any questions you may have regarding this particular progress.
Yeah, hey, members of council, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak with you all tonight. I appreciate the collaboration that I've had with the city of Hartford and with HUD. It was really interesting to hear the previous presentation. We are very similar and very different at the same time to what you just heard from Mr. Adams and Ms. Sanderson. We are 100% project-based Section 8. In my opinion, that's really all I do. Nationally, we redevelop apartment complexes that are almost exclusively project-based Section 8 nationally, and we deal with a lot of challenges. And for those of you that I'm sure most or all of you know about Clay Arsenal, it was in every sense a challenge. This is a property that HUD was abating the subsidy. Dr. Carson came to the community and saw under deplorable conditions. There was a massive public outreach that we took on in addressing massive pest and rodent issues at the property, unpaid taxes, unpaid vendors and people doing work at the property, and just a lot of deferred maintenance. And that's what I do. Our company is a social impact fund, and we try to, frankly, and change the lives of those that live in our communities. And so this was a normal project for us, and something we see in most of the communities that we acquire. We are different from the last presentation because we are not using tax credits in our rehab. We rehab out of our pocket through our funds. So we have, that gives us some advantages. A great example here is we acquired this in December of 2018, and we have virtually completed, other than a community center and some additional, a few remaining units. We've completed all the rehab by now, and we would have been done a little earlier if not for COVID and the changes that presented and challenges that presented to us. So we are a cash rehab group. We spent almost $10,000 a unit on the interiors. The interior units are very different, and I wish I had, and I just didn't know, and I apologize. I wish I had slides for you all to show before and after. I ran an article in the Hartford Current, which I can pull to y'all and send and circulate, which tells a lot about me and who I am and where I came from, but also what we've done in this community. It's a 25 building scattered site, and we have on the interiors, we have done everything from new flooring to cabinets, countertops, appliances, LED lighting. We've enhanced the security of the property. What Tone mentioned earlier, we took what I call the envelope of all the buildings and we fixed it. That was the problem. There was water intrusion. There were bad roofs that needed to be replaced. The basements were disgusting. We did a lot to just kind of secure the envelope of each of the building, which meant a lot of tuck pointing and stuff, windows, just eliminating entry points for pests and rodents and for water. And then when we did that, we went to the basement, we put in cement flooring, fire retardant firewall, fire code safe changes, and dehumidifiers and some things like that really kind of helped on the basement level. And once those two things were done, we then went and changed all the interior units, which is, we redid the heating panels and what I said before, flooring, kitchens, bathrooms, to a complete makeover inside the units. And we did this by vacating. HUD actually abated their subsidy, and the property was vacated through the Housing Authority's team and Ms. Sanderson, and they were vouchered to different places. And then when we completed the first phase of our rehab, we went building by building through the property. And as we completed buildings and they got CAO'd and passed inspections, HUD brought subsidy back to our community, and we notified the prior tenants, and those tenants were allowed to come back if they opted to, or we took applications for new tenants. And one of the unique things about Clay Arsenal, which I think is important, is that this does cater to very large, uniquely large units. One of the things I see nationally is how small the units are in the project-based Section 8 world. And this is not that. We've got 4 and 5 bedrooms, for example, that are, the 4 bedrooms are 1,300 square feet. The 5 bedrooms are 1965. It's almost 2,000 square feet. So for those, we have Mayor Bronin's been there. We've done a lot of community. We had to bring and rebrand Clay Arsenal because of the prior owner. And so we've done a lot of interactive events with the community. We go there a lot. I am from Atlanta, but I've learned to really appreciate the collaboration with Hartford. So I really am. Any questions y'all have? I think Mr. Adams said it very, very importantly earlier. The real way to be successful for the long term in project-based Section 8 is a collaboration between HUD, us, and the city of Hartford. And we have done, we're on the finish line for this project, and we really need this collaboration on the abatement. We're going for a 10-year abatement, and we need this collaboration so we can afford to maintain it.
Greg, I'm sorry if I can, because you're actually discussing some of the material in the future slides here. So I just want to kind of stay on point because I realize the committee has a limited amount of time. So as you can see, the property was purchased by TGM Cara Holding in 2018. As Greg mentioned, the subsidy or the housing assistance payment contract with HUD was terminated by HUD for the former owner. Somehow, TGM Holding, Cara Holding, was able to negotiate the reinstatement of the agreement, which in itself is quite an accomplishment after the agreement was terminated. not only have they renegotiated a 20-year payment assistance contract, they've also signed a 20-year, I'm sorry, I think it's a 20-year user agreement. And I believe the payment assistance contract is how long, Greg? Is it 10 years or 20?
It's a 20-year contract.
Here. So what that means in terms of a user agreement means that even if HUD was to terminate the payment agreement, they're still obligated to pay to operate this property as affordable housing for the term of that contract, whatever the remainder of the 20 years is post termination. Which just says that there's a commitment on their behalf to maintain and operate affordable housing. Greg kind of went into a lot of this already, where he talked about his company and his partners, the group of investors that he currently works with. They own approximately 18 affordable housing complexes. At one point in time, they've owned or managed up to 90. They're also always looking to acquire more. And if they have the same, if they approach this with the same intent that they did with Cara, I think the city or whomever, the property itself will benefit as a result of their ownership, just based on their commitment. And as Greg said, they don't use tax credit money, so it's actually coming out of somebody's pocket. Private investors look for a return differently than tax credit investors. With private investors, tax credit investors are able to raise a lot of money and they don't have to repay a large portion of it because of the understanding of how tax credits work. And how that works is you have a lot of institutional investors who will buy tax credits, and in return, they get a reduction or write-off of their income taxes as a result of investing in the tax credits, buying the tax credits. In this private financing source, they're looking for return. It's the same way you and I do when we invest money in the stock market or if we buy an investment property. We're going to look for cash flow. We're going to look for return on the investment. So with that being said, and not only that, they're dealing with a little slightly different animal because they have buildings that are over 100 years old, which is going to require a little more maintenance and probably more substantial cash toward various other aspects of maintaining the property.
Thank you, Tony.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Councilman.
Are you? I'm just looking at the time. Are you almost done?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Yes,
You are?
Mr. Chair. We'll go through it quickly.
Okay.
So we just want to start a demonstration of responsible corporate citizenship. Once when we talked about the fact that they've applied for permits when required. They've hired certified minority contractors even when they weren't required to, because there was no assistance agreement, no tax abatement agreement. They've also agreed to pay the outstanding taxes that the former owner incurred and were never collected for whatever reason that might be. They've also worked with the community groups to not only get an opinion of the groups, but to see what it is that they need to in order to improve the neighborhood as well as the units. I'm sure you all are familiar with the Christian Activity Council and their efforts to resolve some of the housing issues that the project faced prior to TMG Cara Holdings ownership. We've not heard anything from them since then, and I think that's a good sign. What they're requesting is the committee assessment and abatement of taxes is in support of this. The abatement, what the abatement will do is it allow the owner to invest substantial capital into the repairs and improvements. And also, and I was harking back to this, it will provide an incentive to other investors and property owners to come in and invest in the city. Because what we're talking about is this abatement was calculated very slightly different than the tax credit investors. The tax credit investors, when we calculate the abatement of their taxes, what we look for is to make sure that they have sufficient debt coverage ratios so they're always in compliance. In this case, what we look at is to make sure that they have what was known as an equity dividend that's reasonable. A return on cash that they actually took out of their bank accounts or however they raised it and invested into this property. So the payment terms of the abatement are, as you can see there, it's a 10-year term. They've offered to pay $200,000 the first year toward the grand list. It's a one-time payment. Every year from that point on, it's $1,000 per unit. From year 3 through 10, it's not only $1,000 per unit, it's $1,000 per unit with a 1.5% increase. And of course, the increase becomes permanent and cumulative. Councilman Gale. Thank you all for the opportunity. If there's any other questions we can answer for you, please ask.
Thank you very much. Just want to, I see hands already, Councilman LeBron. Just want to let my colleagues know we have a public hearing at 7 o'clock. So please keep your questions very short and concise. Thank you. Councilman LeBron.
Yes, so it's not a question. I just want to just make a statement. So my wife grew up right across the street from the development. And I read the article last year, Mr. Greg Jones, and I just want to just make a statement. You know, the previous owner left a scar in our community and left a scar in Hartford. And I want to thank you for taking the opportunity for trying to heal that wound. And I realize that, you know, these things are difficult, but I appreciate your investment in our community. And I appreciate all that, your efforts and everything that you're trying to do. And how this presentation has made it clear to me that unequivocally that there's no linkage to the former owners, because I think that oftentimes, you know, in our communities, when we get scarred, there's always a reactionary to think that we're going to, for lack of a better word, I don't know a better word than to say get played, right? And so that's not happening here. So thank you again for trying to heal our wounds. I appreciate it.
Well, Congressman LeBron, I appreciate that you just made my month. You know, it's you know, I am, you know, a developer. We do this and we are for profit, but there's nothing better than when you can do this and do good things at the same time. It is exactly why I do this. I believe in it very much. And I think for those, Tone and Brian Matthews, and those that know me, they know I care. It's in my heart. I love it. And that makes me feel really good.
Thank you. And I thank you for the work that you've done so far. It's good to hear that there is no linkages whatsoever between your organization and the previous owners. I really agree with Councilman LeBron how this has actually left a deep scar, deep stain in the community, in the Clay Arsenal neighborhood. And it's good to hear that the neighborhood actually supports you in your vision on revitalizing the Clay Arsenal neighborhood. So thank you very much for that. Councilwoman Surgeon.
I just want to thank Mr. Jones also. I had 2 calls from residents in Clay Arsenal who recommended that I vote positively on this item in the committee. They said that they gave me so many accolades and credit for working in the community, and they just want residents to come back and live. It's a beautiful neighborhood, it's an historic neighborhood, and they're looking forward to having the residents come back and live in that community. So, Mr. Jones, thank you. And if I don't vote positively, I may not have 2 votes if I want to run for re-election 3 years from now. So I definitely am wholeheartedly in support, because these are longtime residents of Clay Arsenal, and they are the ones who reached out and said this, we really, really want to see this happen. So thank you.
Surgeon, thank you. And we're just beginning. You know, we're not a multi-phase redevelopment like the Penrose Cloud Group, but we do plan on building with the pilot a new community center, which will include library, business center, things that are really amenities that these that our tenants in the community can enhance their lives and create opportunity, along with service coordination and some of the amenities that we'll provide, you know, with the community center. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And before I call on Councilman Gale, Tone, can you please unshare the screen?
Sure.
Thank you.
was trying to do that, Mr. Chair, but I was afraid I was going to terminate my connection here.
No. That's fine. Councilman Gale.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just would like to point out for anybody that's listening that my understanding that the resolution on this tax abatement is very similar to the resolution on the prior tax abatement for the Westbrook Village, in that they each have a community benefits agreement requiring that during construction phases, each one of the developers hires a certain number, in this case 15% Hartford-based minority contractors, 30% of work hours go to Hartford residents, and 15% go to minority businesses. So it's a 15-30-15 that we saw before. And also, I wasn't using the right terminology before when I was talking, asking Tone the default question. I meant to say clawback, that each one of these agreements has a certain clawback in it that requires that the owner can't cash out or sell without the city getting something back on its taxes. In each case, it's 10% of the money, not to exceed, of course, the abated taxes. So I just wanted to point that out. And then one question I have for Tony, if you happen to know, it strikes me that we're going to be getting $150,000 in taxes on this project, and I'm just wondering what was the tax bill that the prior owner had for the city?
Well, the current taxes on the assessed taxes are approximately $330,000. The prior owner had a more generous tax abatement, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think he paid $260 a unit. And
yeah, it was a tiny amount. We are paying a lot more than the city was getting prior. And also, Councilman Gale, we have, due to the timing of this, the prior pilot with Mr. Q was abated, and we paid just about full taxes for the that would be the 2017 grant list, and we have paid full taxes for the 2018 grant list. So we've already paid, almost $500,000 in taxes between those 2 years, $329,000. So we're going to pay that $200,000 in our first year of this 10. So we have kind of followed the advice of Hartford and appreciate, what was not paid by the previous owner and tried to do our part to change that.
Thank you. And same offer to you that we put out to the other group. I'm happy to take a tour if you want to organize one.
Oh, absolutely. We would love it. Love it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. I would love one too. Again, time check. It is 6:48. Council President.
Yes, with that said, if there are no other questions, I'd like to make a motion to refer this item
Second.
back to council with a favorable recommendation.
So it's been properly motioned by Council President Rosado for a favorable recommendation, seconded by Councilwoman Shirley Surgeon. Any other discussions? Seeing none. All those that are in favor, let them say aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstentions? I'm sorry? Okay. Being that there are no abstentions or oppositions, this item has successfully passed. Favorable recommendation to the next council meeting, August 10th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Thank you, Greg, for you making an investment into the city of Hartford, and particularly to the Clay Arsenal neighborhood. We do appreciate what you're doing. Thank you, Tone, and give our regards to Brian Matthews as well for your department. And seeing that we have Brian, I just wanted to, before we conclude, Councilman Gale, are you advertising, promoting Knox Foundation today?
I'll change cups in a minute and I'll get you a heart.
All right, guys. Oh, come on.
Seeing we have to add some type of laughter into our lives. Seeing that we have no other items to discuss for this OMBGA committee meeting, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you very much.
Members of the council, appreciate it.